Well, howdy, and welcome to the Mark Driscoll Show, guys. We have an awesome show in store for you. We have special guest Deace joining us today. We get into all kinds of things, including we find out why Nick Fuentes is still a virgin. Get ready. We're going to talk about conservatives. We're going to talk about conspiracy theories. We're going to talk about our favorite person, Candace Owens. Buckle up. Get ready. It's going to be a good one. Awesome. So first question, we wanted to talk about what does the conservative movement look like post Charlie Kirk? A lot of attacking each other right now. It's a mess in the conservative world.
So Steve, you've been doing this how long?
20 years.
20 years in the political space.
Yeah.
Christian, you love Jesus, Bible guy. Have you seen anything like the reality television show / rehab clinic that we're living in right now?
No, this year has been the greatest bingo card ever. Okay. I mean, some old lady would have won her trip to Belize y'all were talking about recently on your podcast with this bingo card.
Yeah.
This has been it's been incredible. And
incredible good, incredible bad.
Yes. And I would go to just even the last 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
Where, you know, we had our dear friend just assassinated MLK style. And then after that, you know, it's funny, and I heard from a lot of pastors that I know around the country I heard this from. I know that TPUSA heard this as well, which is, well, we appreciate what Charlie's doing, but, you know, he's too close to Trump. It's too political. And we kind of think, frankly, he's just using the gospel for politics.
Mm-hmm.
And then they watched that memorial.
Oh, my gosh.
And they watched Don Jr. tell America more about the first Christian martyr, Stephen, than most Christians know. They watched Marco Rubio basically do an altar call. That's the Secretary of State of the most powerful nation in the history of this planet, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And to the point that by the time Trump got up and spoke, you know, he's like, snap, man, I should have gone first.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to eclipse Trump on a stage, but obviously Jesus is going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a way, it almost looked like by the time he got up to do his thing, the event had kind of
crescendo.
Yeah, it had gotten beyond him and what he represents. And then I had a whole bunch of those same pastors that said things like this to me for years and said things like that to TPUSA for years. Oh man, we had it backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, it turned out he was using the political process to spread the gospel. And so that's why we had this mass spirit of unity. Thousands of churches joined TPUSA in the aftermath. People that didn't want to return their calls were now doing so.
Yep.
And then it seemed like maybe these are the seeds of revival to see Erica get up there and model forgiveness, but also that the state is to do justice at the same time. And it seemed like we were looking at mustard seeds of revival, which is why I'm not surprised that the enemy said, oh, wait, they're about to figure this out. You know, for the last 20 years, we've had the church thinking there was a, quote, third way of doing this. That there was a way of...
Real quickly, Steve, I always say not to interrupt you right before I interrupt you. Explain that third way, because there's an entire generation of evangelical leaders, many of whom are not finishing well, and they decided that straddling the fence and chafing your crotch was Christian fidelity. So explain the third way, which is the chafe-crotching agenda.
I think Martin Luther has the best description of the third way ever, which is if I have and I'm paraphrasing here, but if I have the utmost devotion to Christ, but yet I do not take that devotion into the place where the fire rages the absolute hottest, then I'm really not any kind of a Christian really at all. And that the first people that Christ throws into the lake of fire are cowards. And what the third way basically said was we could create kind of these suburban monasteries, Protestant evangelical monasteries, but at least when the Catholics did it, they built them in the middle of nowhere. We built ours right in the heart of where the real battle is actually taking place, okay? And that we could have these mass mausoleums that Tuesday through Saturday do nothing but just have weeds that need mowed in the lawn. The battle is raging in all these homes and all these strip malls and all these storefronts and all these office parks that are surrounding us. The battle is raging. We have nothing to offer. We preach kind of this neutral Jesus where the baseline gospel of sin and repentance is preached, but there's no expectation, there's no application. I was in one of these churches once, and the pastor at the end of his sermon, this is a great example, got up and started talking about Telemachus, the monk that ended the gladiator games in Rome. And he told the story about Telemachus and how he had yelled out, "This is savagery," in Latin, "Stop what you're doing." And eventually, after doing it 3 times and nearly spilling his water, eventually the people realized it wasn't a joke. And so one of the centurions came over, because he had gone down to the floor of the arena, and one of the centurions came down and ran his spear right through his heart and killed him on the spot. And the backlash to the death of Telemachus was so profound that was the last day ever the gladiator games took place in Rome. And so I'm listening to this and I'm like, wow, for once this guy is going to do it. He's going to do it. And he's going to end it with, and now your job is to go be the Telemachus of your family, the Telemachus of your community, the Telemachus of your church. Kid you not, he got done telling that story and said, all right, we're going to call the worship team up and just do one more song. Okay? That is third wayism in a nutshell. That there is a way to do this parallel to the world and not perpendicular like the cross is. And so these two worlds, the city of man and city of God, never have to intersect. Not coincidentally, it's also a great way for me to do ministry so we can rack up an exorbitant amount of tithing units, because no one's ever offended when they come here, right? And that's essentially what modern evangelicalism has been for the last generation. And they claimed they were doing this to be, quote, seeker-friendly. And the great irony of all of that is Charlie was the one being seeker-friendly, because he was going where the seekers actually were. It's always funny to me that these kinds of churches always think the seekers are in the most posh suburbs where people want the least amount of conflict, the most amount of comfort, and can write the biggest checks. It's kind of funny to me how that always works itself out.
Yeah, I read something the other day. It was talking about Christians are the only people that fish and expect the fish to show up in the sporting goods store.
Right.
And it's like, no, that we're not going to the non-believers. Pastor Mark, you're getting told a lot that pastors shouldn't talk about this stuff and pastors shouldn't address this. What are you seeing at your church?
So for me, we should, 2 things. Number one, if Christ is risen and ascended, then he has authority over all that is under his throne. And as citizens of his kingdom, we should be speaking about everything that is under his rule. And that means everyone and everything. So the complete idiots who say, just preach the gospel, it's like, no. If his throne is over all people and places, that means everyone and everything is under his sovereign rule. That means we have to preach about everyone and everything coming under his sovereign rule, because when all is said and done, everyone and everything will be coming under his sovereign rule, and they need to know that. We want them to repent as soon as possible, bring themselves and all of their stuff under his sovereign rule. That's the call of the gospel. That is the gospel. It's not just personally accepting Jesus in your heart. He's not just Lord over your heart. He's Lord over everyone and everything. And so again, this is a truncated view of the gospel that Jesus only rules in here. He doesn't rule out there. And secondly, I come into political convictions through biblical convictions. So I preach through books of the Bible. I know you're a Bible guy, Steve. And it's like, okay, well, just go to Genesis. Okay, well, there's the Tower of Babel, and God says no to globalism, and he creates nationalism. Okay, well, just keep going. Next book of the Bible, if you're preaching them, Exodus. Oh, God has a head-on collision with the government and the nation of Egypt. I mean, okay, now we're hitting laws. Okay, what are these laws for? In, the Pentateuch.
They're based on?
They're based upon God setting up governments with rule of law for justice from their creator, which our founding fathers decided they would adopt. You just keep going. You get to books like Ezra and Nehemiah. It's a government project to secure a city so people can worship God. Okay, go to Daniel. Well, this is a guy working for a government. Oh, yeah, yet again, go to Genesis 38 through 50. It's God sovereignly raising up Joseph to have a government position so that he can feed people and preserve a remnant so that the nation of Israel could come. I mean, the Abrahamic covenant is so that we can get the nation of Israel. It's political. I mean, you would have to literally be a drunk monkey to preach through books of the Bible and ignore that oftentimes the backdrop is nations and governmental leaders. You get to the New Testament, the government murders Christ. The apostles get arrested by the government. The disciples get martyred by the government. I mean, for those people that say we need to stay out of political issues, these are people who are foolish, and they have had very bad Bible teaching, and they have not had expositional teaching taking them through books of the Bible, because if you go through books of the Bible, you're not quite as much of an idiot.
Yeah. Are you seeing conversions? Are you seeing people get saved at your church?
Well, yeah. I mean, so if you teach the Bible, people repent of sin and receive Jesus. So like this year, we've had 629 baptisms at our church. And you could preach and reach. And this is one of the things that is a lie. And one of the lies is, well, we can't really teach and we can't really preach because we want to reach. And it's like, no. The word of God is powerful and effective. Don't be ashamed of the gospel. And people aren't saved because they're stupid. People are not saved because they're sinful and unrepentant. So tell them that they're sinful and repent, and that they need to repent, and then they'll get saved. And so, yeah, I mean, what Charlie was doing was he was an evangelist, under the auspices of political engagement. Yep. But what he was doing on campus was like an old tent revival. Yeah. Literally, there's a tent.
Literally a tent. Yeah.
There's literally a tent, and there he is, and he is having conversations with people, and he's telling them about Christ and biblical worldview. Mm-hmm. And so if you can't see Charlie as a creative evangelist and a tent revivalist, you miss the entire point of his ministry. And you knew Charlie. I knew Charlie. He loved Jesus Christ, and his political commitment was here. His commitment to Christ was here. Mm-hmm. His devotion to Jesus was his highest devotion.
Yep.
And that came through at his memorial. And I think those who tuned in were shocked, because
the largest proclamation of the gospel in human history.
Yeah. And everybody said, well, you can't talk about Charlie without talking about Jesus, because Charlie was always talking about Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So let's fast forward, Steve, from that.
So the enemy sees that and says, well, now they're going to, if we don't step in, I think the enemy said, if we don't step in here, they're going to figure out that actually being a prophetic voice to the culture is the most effective evangelism tool they actually have.
Yeah.
And that the bifurcation of these things that we convinced them to do for a generation is a total scam.
Yep.
Because if Charlie did anything, he proved third wayism and seeker sensitivism was a heterodoxy and a scam. He proved that.
Yep.
And so I think the enemy then has gone in overdrive to sow seeds of division in the brethren. I think, frankly, we have some smart, well-meaning people that are also spiritually immature, that have, I think, prematurely tried to foist themselves into Charlie's void, but they don't really have the spiritual wherewithal and biblical knowledge to understand the context of the things they're talking about. And now they're advocating, well, maybe we should decouple from Israel and join with Islam. Now, maybe we should decouple from Israel. That's a separate topic. Joining with Islam is a pretty terrible idea if you know anything about 1,300 years of history of trying to do such things, right? And then I think you have just good old-fashioned scalawags and grifters that have stepped in to try to exploit the moment for whatever selfish means they have. And now we're in this period right now where we're trying to figure out, how do we confront these elements? Because you have to confront these elements in any movement, otherwise they'll infest it. But at the same time, not make the division even worse than it already is. Yeah. And so that's kind of where we're at here at the end of the year.
It's hardcore tribalism. We're seeing tribal chiefs emerge. And one of the things that Charlie did, because he had relational winsomeness, he would behind the scenes do a lot of coalition building. And he would bring people together to try and work out their differences privately. In addition, he had enough authority that he could be a bit of a hostage negotiator between the tribes. Today, that person is gone. And there isn't anybody with the relational ability or the depth of character. And so what we have now, it almost feels like a WWE event, and we lost the referee. I mean,
can I give a personal example of what you're talking about? I don't think I've even talked about this publicly before, but a couple of years ago, Charlie calls me out of nowhere on a weekday afternoon. And I had taken issue with something somebody close to him had said on an issue. I don't even remember what it was now. Just goes to show how effective what he did here was. I don't remember who it was, and I don't even remember what the issue was.
Mhm.
All right. And he called me up and said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I heard you go after so-and-so. All right. And let me just kind of give you the backdrop on that, so you know where he's coming from and why that was said and why that was done." Then he kind of explained to himself, and I wasn't sure if I even agreed with him yet or not. But in our line of work, it is way more common for that person to instead just jump on, well, back then it was Twitter, blast away, which will cause somebody like me to just dig in my heels all the more in defense of myself. Instead, he called me, he confronted me. Now, he did it in a genteel way, but this is a confrontation nevertheless. He called me, he confronted me, explained his side, and then says, "Hey, are we good? Do you think we're okay?" And I don't know what else to say other than, "Yeah, I think we're okay and we're good," and just diffuse the entire situation to the point, again, I don't remember who it was or even what the issue was.
Yeah.
All right. The amount of people on our side who had the integrity, but the clout to do that as well, it's just very small, unfortunately. And that's just one example. And I can promise you there's hundreds of examples like that of nuclear bombs that Charlie diffused behind the scenes.
And so my experience with Charlie, I'd ask if you agree, when you were with him, he was a bit of a pastor. He considered other people. He had a bit of compassion and empathy. And like a pastor, he would help lead people to the place that they needed to be.
Right.
And he did have best interest of other individuals at heart. And so to me, when I was with Charlie, I was like, he is a political guy. He's an evangelistic guy, but he is a bit of a pastor.
I thought he was maybe the most, and I say this small a, because I don't want to get you guys in any theological trouble after I leave here. But I think small a, he is the most apostolically gifted human being I've ever met.
Yeah.
I mean, the ability to rebuke, confront, restore, repair. And when you consider the youngness of his age, there was just an unbelievable amount of apostolic anointing and blessing there. And of course, the enemy saw it as well, which is why he shot him in the throat.
And so where does that leave conservatism? And at this point, Steve, like, what does a sane Christian do to move forward in this incredibly conflicted, divided, I think of the line in Galatians, bite and devour one another. I mean, it feels like that's the new verse. Well, thank you to our partners at Goldco. Since we have been partnering with them, we have gotten some questions from you. One of the most common questions is now the right time to buy gold and silver, or should you wait for prices to come down? Well, here's the answer. Precious metals are not quick flips. You buy precious metals for legacy, to preserve assets for your retirement and for your children. While you're waiting for the perfect price, your cash is losing value. It's literally melting while you are waiting. That's why I'm encouraging you to put your money into gold and silver with our partners at Goldco. They'll give you a free 2026 gold and silver kit to help you learn more. Plus, there's a bonus silver or gold offer, one you can't beat. It's a 10% instant match for those who qualify. So here's what you need to do. Give Goldco a call today, 855-512-GOLD. Again, that's 855-512-GOLD, or you can just click on the link below. Thank you very much. Take care, and God bless.
As we are having this conversation, we're getting ready for America Fest, right? And I have said this to the whole team over there. I've said this to my own audience. My hope is that we will come out of this with the unity and siege of revival we felt after Charlie's memorial. There's a possibility this is going to be the biggest event ever held on the right that wasn't a Republican Party convention. And a lot of these are people who could not get to the memorial. And so this is going to be their celebration of Charlie's life.
Yep.
And I hope that will help us to keep things. I'm speaking 4 times this week, and I am going to try as best as I can to make the main thing the absolute main thing, because I think it's vitally important from just a morale and an esprit de corps after the last few months of nihilism that we go into the holidays and into the new year feeling that momentum and inspiration and missiology and purpose again, because after the new year, we are going to have some very sober talks. We are going to have some very adult level talks about what is and should be our future relationship with Israel, what is and should be our future relationship with Islam, because it's complicated. We do have some Arab countries. I call them Arab as a distinction from Muslim. We have some Arab countries that Trump understood from doing business deals over there, that it turns out there's a lot of sheiks and caliphs and others who just like we have, politicians on our side or here in our country who they fake their Christianity for election.
Yeah.
What Trump learned is there's a lot of Arab leaders over there that would prefer to have a Wahhabi state than Wahhabi schools. All right. But they just don't feel like they can. They politically feel like they have to genuflect to it. They've got to, reach out to it or pander to it. And so I think that Trump's understanding of that and that psyche is why he's had unprecedented success with these Mideast peace deals. And so we do want to have some economic common ground with the Saudis, the Jordanians, the Egyptians. They literally lobbed drones at missiles that Iran aimed for Israel earlier this year. All right. So we want that, because if they will take bribes to not have any needless Middle Eastern wars, I think all three of at the table here would say,
yeah, good.
We're in.
Yep.
Okay. All right. The issue, though, that we can't have, and this is a conversation that we need to have. In the last era, we were told, let's go fight them over there so they don't come over here. Well, we went and fought them over there, and they all still came over here.
They still came over here. Yep.
What we can't do is we're going to go invest over there and then let them come over and import their culture over here, right? When I see countries like Qatar, that's what they're doing. They're heavily invested in things like Al Jazeera, the network, that is just pumping. Did you notice that there were more protests in our country? We saw more protests in our country about quote unquote Palestine and Gaza than went on in Egypt and Saudi Arabia. And it's because these interests are pumping this into the television feeds of the 3 million plus Muslims we've imported into this country since 9/11. And so this worldview is now behind our own veil. All right. And so what we can't do is just we did the military version of, we're going to have the worst end of both deals in the previous era. We can't do the commerce and business side of that now. I am fine cutting deals with them in order to normalize relations. Right now, there's 2,000 Jews working full-time in Saudi Arabia. That may not sound like a lot. There's not a lot of Jews in the world.
No.
2,000 Jews living full-time and working full-time in Saudi Arabia is freaking extraordinary, all right? I'm great with that, but we're not going to import Saudi Arabian culture into America, right? No, you're not going to buy our movie studios. No, you're not going to buy our schools. No, you're not going to private equity our college sports teams. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you have your way of life. We have ours. There's no reason why we have to fight over that, but we're not going to let you subversively come in and undo a value system that Charlie understood is not really compatible with Western civilization. And I think that argument is going to have to take place in this next year. And that's why I think it is paramount here at the end, particularly with something like AmericaFest, that we make as much of a good faith, shared purpose, missiology deposit right now, so that later on, when the family's got to have a serious conversation about direction of where we're going as a clan here, people feel like that there's not a bunch of bitterness that is still left over, because there are serious conversations that have to take place on the right. And Charlie knew that, but we don't have a leader like Charlie to officiate them right now.
Yeah. So let me ask you two weird questions. What is driving on the right the addiction to conspiracy theories? Mm-hmm. And what is driving the complete anger and bitterness of young men? I mean, because without naming names, it seems to me young men, anger, bitterness, burn it all down, don't trust anybody. Women, conspiracy theories, wild conspiracy theories.
Those tabloids weren't in the checkout line at the supermarkets for years, brother, because nobody read those things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's start with the young men first. There is going to be, and there is occurring, a revolution with the young men. And that is good, and it is overdue. The question is, what kind of revolution will it be? We are either going to have the French Revolution or we're going to have the American Revolution. Now, what is the difference? The French Revolution is power to the people. It is down with the elites, down with the aristocracy. And that sounded like fun and games until the clergy started losing an eye and their heads. What they did right after that is they brought the guillotines back out that they used to use on them and said, we're not going to use them on you, starting with the church, all right? And they kicked the Virgin Mary out of the Cathedral of Notre Dame, not for the reason that you and I might, but for the wrong reasons. They did it because they replaced her with the goddess of reason instead, all right? And instead, they took a different group of people, just a different throng of people were falsely imprisoned, falsely blasphemed, falsely smeared, falsely broken than the other group. They just shifted their sinfulness. There wasn't really anything noble there in that revolution. And that's what godless revolutions on this earth typically produce. You just end up becoming exactly like that which you overthrew. That's the end of Animal Farm, right? And they looked from man to pig and pig to man and back to pig again, and they couldn't tell which was which, right? Now, the American Revolution has a higher yield. What's like one of the final lines of the Declaration? We appeal to the supreme judge of the universe for the rectitude of our actions. That's an old English term for motivations, all right? Meaning, what we're doing in line with your will? Because God, if this is wrong, because there was great argumentation amongst the founders, because a lot of them came from Anabaptist post-Reformation Anabaptist traditions, and they believed any rebellion against the governing authority they had the John MacArthur view. That any rebelling against a governing authority, no matter what the cause, was a violation of Romans 13. So they had to navigate this space. They spent a good deal of time theologically. Why do you think they list all those grievances against the king in the middle, in the body of the Declaration? They are making the case that what he is asking us to do is ungodly, and that we must obey God and not man. And then at the end of their theological treatise, they say, Lord, if this hermeneutic is wrong, if we have not rightly divided your will and the word, then do not let this be successful. That's what that line means. They were appealing themselves to be judged, all right? That's humility, right? This is where Congress sends Geneva Bibles out to every household in America as one of the first acts of a new country, right? And so which revolution are we going to have? The French Revolution, where all that angry energy is going to go somewhere, and probably in a destructive place, or the American Revolution, where we're going to construct a place. And let me tell you who I think is going to determine that. Mark, I think it's going to be men like you and me are going to determine that. Our generation, it took me a few years. I was really lamenting that our generation's probably going to get passed over from a leadership perspective. Like the next president's probably going to be a millennial, all right? If it's a Republican anyway, probably going to be J.D. Vance, all right? And then the Lord was like, no, you have it wrong. You are going to take a leadership position, but your generation needs to show finishing well.
The current generation is not finishing well.
Correct.
They're hanging on well, and they're fumbling in the red zone.
Correct. For the young men to have the American Revolution, here's what they need. They need to see grandma still pinching grandpa's butt well into his 60s because they've been married together the whole time and they still dig each other, all right? They need to see that you are leaving them an inheritance and striving to leave them more than they probably could possibly want, that whatever you can max out, you want to leave that for them. That you took care of your retirement so that as best as you can, you're not calling them all the time, right when they're in the prime struggling years of raising your grandkids, that you did what you could to get out ahead of that and make yourself in a position where you could, you're available if they need your time, and you're not a drain on their time and resources.
Yes, amen.
In other words, they need to see it, that you're not the 60-year-old guy. I've got the 35-year-old side piece secretary, okay, that I think I'm going to get away with that. And maybe you think you're going to do that because you're the Michigan football coach and you're not going to get away with that. Right? They need to, the call of our Gen X generation is to make up for what the previous era is not finishing well. We have to finish well. And because there's no male role model for the young men to turn to and say, there's a better place for my anger than this. There's a better place for my anger, for my frustration and energy than this. There's no model. We skipped a generation of men in the pulpit and in families. And so what our generation's number one call will be is to replace that marker and put that marker in the home so the younger men can see that there is a way to take that anger and turn it into righteous indignation, right? And it's not about tone or temperament, all right? It's about motivation, all right? Jesus didn't throw a tantrum when he turned over the money changers. There was a righteous motivation behind that action, right? And I think our generation's call now, we have to show that we're going to finish well so those young men can see, you know what? There's a time in my life when all the stuff that you guys yelled at me and said, don't prolong adolescence, get married poor, do all that kind of stuff. And now on the back end of it, I can see what faithfulness provides. Look at the life you have. I mean, I want that life. That's how I want that third and final act of my life. I want it to look exactly like that. Well, we skipped a generation of modeling that legacy. And I think our generation's call will be to reinstall that legacy so that the young men now fight the American Revolution and not the French Revolution. It's out of a devotion to Christ and not just power to the people and anger.
Yeah. And the motivation that drives a young man is ultimately glory to God and good for family. Those are the only two things that'll drive a young man for a lifetime. It's glory to God and good for a family. And this is where I agree, and we're even seeing it. I mean, you're more in politics, I'm in pastoral ministry. An entire generation is not finishing well. They're either hanging on way too long, like not handing over the baton to the next generation, or wildly failing at the end. Apostasy, adultery.
Can I address that point really quick too? Because this is where I think our generation is key. The young men need to hear it is not easy to get on the other side of this. Okay, I mean, you know this. My wife and I talk about it publicly now, but our kids didn't really find out about it until God restored the situation. But 5 years ago, my wife and I were this close to getting a divorce. I was this close, and she was this close to being the cautionary tale of not finishing well that we are talking about here. And nothing short of the Lord doing a miracle brought us back from the brink. All right. And now it's like we're in our 20s again. We cannot keep our hands off each other. We don't go anywhere. Like, we can avoid it without each other. Right. The kids are grossed out again. That's what you want. Okay.
Yep.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
you don't want them in trauma therapy.
Yes.
But icked out is good. Yeah.
Yes. But it's not easy to get to this point. And I think they need to see us suffer. They need to see us fall down and get back up. They need to hear things like the closest I've ever come to testing the perseverance of the saints was the opening weekend of Nefarious, and we made only $500,000 domestic. And I'm like, I'm going bankrupt. I nearly died making this.
I remember talking to you that week.
Yep. And I'm out. And the Lord did it. He abandoned me. I cannot believe this. Okay. And I'll never forget what you said to me on the phone that night. All right. About you get to this point and you have to make up your mind. All right. Do I really believe the Lord brought me all the way out here to pull the rug out from underneath me? Okay. Or am I against my feelings and emotions? Am I going to persevere? Am I going to stand on that wall, stand in the gap, and see what the Lord has waiting for me on the other side? Right. And I listened to your advice, and I waited to see what the Lord has waiting for me on the other side. And now what he has waiting for me on the other side, I mean, if I knew at 25 this is what life would be at 52, I'd have tried to get married and start all this a lot sooner than I did, so it could happen in my 40s when I was still a lot younger and in better shape and stronger. Right? Yeah. And so that's what the young men need to see. They need to see that there will be struggles, there will be doubts, there's going to be failures, but that you will persevere through those things. You'll finish that race. Notice it doesn't say win the race.
Yeah.
You win by finishing the race.
Yeah.
All right. That's the win. And I think we skipped a generation of finishing the race. And I think that what our generation, the Gen X's number one charge now is the men of our generation have to be the generation that finished the race so that his generation and the one behind them can see that modeled again and say, okay, I don't have to cut corners. I don't have to prolong adolescence. I don't have to grift. I don't have to scam. I don't have to lie. I don't have to just pick, another group to other or fall into the Jews could not come up with a homeland of their own for 1,800 years, but somehow are running the planet. Just stuff that is just low IQ silliness when you say it out loud. But when you're thinking emotionally, you don't think like that, right? That model needs to be shown that the Father is faithful if we are faithful as fathers, right? And I think that's what we skipped, and that's the main charge of our generation.
Well, and I'm seeing it with a lot of young men. They're being told, hey, be a man, activate. We're seeing the most conservative generation of men in America in 50 years. So they're, okay, I'm heterosexual. I want to get married. I want to buy a house. I want to have kids. I want to have a family. Great, praise God. Okay, go. And they're like, damn, this is hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Way harder than I thought.
Way harder than
and
I
who would I look to show me that this can actually be done?
Yeah. Well, then they're like,
Right.
okay, it's the Jews. The dang Jews make it hard.
Because they own all the banks.
Or yeah, they own all the or it's the
Except all the ones China actually owns. But yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Or it's the dang government. But you just keep looking for someone to blame that it's hard. And here's the freaking
This is the attraction of a Nick Fuentes.
yeah.
This is Louis Farrakhanism for the right.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that Farrakhan said when we were growing up was
It's
true.
hard to be adulting.
Yes.
Is hard.
Yes, it is.
Like even being a man is hard.
Yes.
Peering out your sphincter and following the light is a lifetime endeavor. Right?
Yes.
It is hard. Like paying your bills is hard. You like marrying a woman is hard. Staying married to the woman is hard. Feeding the children is hard. Paying the bills is hard. Running the company is hard. Everything is hard.
Yep.
Because the world is cursed, because you are sinful. Satan and demons are real. The flesh is real. Everything is against you. Ecclesiastes is right. It's all toil. There is no shortcut. Don't blame anybody. Stop bitching and go do something.
But those of us that say that, we have to do it too. We have to show that.
Yeah,
right? When I hear that from my boomer grandparent who's like, hey, I can't come over and watch the kids, when you've got 3 jobs because I've got a bridge club in Belize, as you guys were talking about recently. All right, kind of hard to then turn around and say, hey, by the way, I need you guys to pay my retirement.
Yeah.
But you can't have your student loan debt canceled. Kind of a hard argument to make.
Yeah.
Okay? And so this is where you can't sit there and say, like I heard what you said the other day about 50-year mortgages, and you challenged me because I went to the Milton Friedman School of Economics. Brain is like, this is a terrible idea. But when the way that you practically approached it, listen, you're right. You can't have a boomer generation say, listen, we're going to give you guys more debt than any human civilization has ever had.
Yeah.
But you can't have a 50-year mortgage. All right? That stuff's not going to work.
Yeah, your
So
dad
gotta
gave you a
model
50-year mortgage.
Yes. Yeah. So we've got to model the charge of our generation, of you and I as Gen Xers now. We have to finish well. We have to model this so that when we then turn around and say, you don't see, that's the attraction of the Farrakhan's and the Fuenteses.
Yeah.
The core thing, their core messages are largely correct. Much of what Farrakhan said was being done to black men coming out of the civil rights movement was accurate. Okay. Much of what Fuentes is arguing and complaining about in terms of the plight of young men is accurate. All right. But the problem is both of these guys' messages are to leave you in perpetual victimology.
Yeah.
So all you do is complain. All you do is whine and get increasingly angrier.
That's
right?
all. That's all he does.
That's all he does.
But you know why, though? 2 things, and then we're going to go to why women are chasing conspiracy theories. Number 1, he's a virgin.
We knew you were going there.
The dude, he's like a 2 liter of pop that's been shook for 26 years, and they've never cracked the lid. Okay, he's frustrated.
He lived with his parents till like last year.
That's a good image.
Listen, there's something to that. There is something to that.
And number 2, once you become a dad, you all of a sudden can't just sit around and complain.
Yep.
You got to produce. And so George Gilder is right. Civilizations are made by men with families to feed.
Amen.
And so at the end of the day, it's like, you know what? I would be angry all day, but my 2-year-old daughter wants to eat, and then she needs a tea party. So I can't be on the internet ranting right now.
Yeah.
Tell Candace that.
Yeah. Well, it's something to pray about.
For the record, I wasn't going to say her name. It wasn't me.
I didn't do it.
Say that. Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors.
That's right.
I did not do it.
Right.
But how
Don't Jew me 14. He's the one you want. All right? Not us. Leave us alone. Stay out of my mention.
Yeah.
All right? Yes.
But how much of it is once you get married and you have your wife and you have your kids and you're going to bed with your wife and you're playing catch with your son or you're snuggling and doing tea parties with your daughter, it kind of takes the angsty edge off a wee bit.
I mean, listen, the ride over here, your guy, John Wilnick, was telling me about a conversation he had with a young man recently. He's like, I really want to marry this girl, but I just don't think I'm financially ready. He's like, bro, it's a lot better to be broken married than it is to be broken single. All right? That's
There's way more crass ways to say that. But
yes.
Yeah. So shifting without naming names.
Yep.
So young men are conservative, but they're angsty and they're angry and they're looking for somebody to blame and they're getting all tribal. So on the other side, we have the most progressive, liberal, feministic generation of women in the history of the world. So I don't know who these dudes are going to marry. I mean, this is
the good news is if you and I did if we did our job right, raising our daughters, it is a buyer's market right now. That's right.
It is.
Because the supply and demand is working in their favor.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is for sure. So why are young women like conspiracy theories and like wild speculation without even a faint hint of fact or evidence?
I think a lot of this would be your classic suburban wine mom with too much time on their hands, frankly. I'm not kidding.
So this is
too much
young and restless
so, yes,
for the next generation.
And I know that because my mom, listen, I was born to a 15-year-old mom. My mom and I literally grew up together. I still remember that Victor Newman was the patriarch of Young and the Restless, and Nikki, the former stripper, was his wife. Because I had to watch all this stuff growing up. It was in my home all the time, all right? And I love my mom, okay? And what's funny is now that she's older, this is the stuff that drives her nuts about women, and she'll complain about it now that she's older, okay? But yeah, there is a soap opera aspect to it. There is I have too much time on my hands aspect to it. Because when you strip away all the various claims, none of which are true, you're really saying, because people would email me, well, I want you to every day on your show go over why this is wrong every single day. And I'm like, I'm going to do that in 2 easy steps, okay? Do you believe that you care more about what happened to Charlie Kirk than his wife and every person who knew him and worked for him? Do you believe that you care more about Tyler Robinson getting a fair trial than every single member of his family who turned him in, and then not one of them has come forward to say, hey, my son or my cousin, my nephew's getting a raw deal here. You don't have the right man. Not a single man. You have to believe, okay, Karen in Schenectady, you have to believe that you care more about Charlie Kirk than his widow does, the widow of the most viewed murder in all of human history, and that you care more about Tyler Robinson than his own family does. That is beyond preposterous. Before I don't have to entertain these salacious details that when someone clearly doesn't know what a time zone in Egypt is, or let alone Utah. I don't have to do this because that's so stupid when you say it out loud, it wouldn't possibly merit any form of a logical response.
I've got a son.
That's essentially what's being claimed.
I've got a son sitting right here. If I turned him in for the most public murder in the history of the world and then burned my entire family's name and reputation forever to the ground, turned us into the Bin Ladens.
You're pariahs.
And it was like, whoops.
Is there any...
Turns out I did check his library card and it got punched. What did I know?
I mean...
Could the Jews pay you enough to do that?
I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you. No.
See, it's just... I had someone call me about a month ago, and they had just gone on a business trip overseas, and he comes back and he says, Steve, I can't believe this. My dear 115-pound traditional Latin Mass Catholic wife has just completely fallen prey to this. I was gone for a week overseas. She got bored, glommed on some of these podcasts, and now she is convinced,
down the rabbit,
that Mossad had Erica Kirk
just theoretically,
away when Charlie was murdered. And he told me it took him 3 days to literally deprogram his sweet wife, to show her this was all a crock. Now, some of this is it's all wrong, but some of it is justifiable. And I say this as the guy, as far as I know, one person has written 2 certified bestsellers on the scamdemic, and it's me. I don't know anybody else who has. So we have just seen in the last 5 years, every single institution that our founding and framing generations established to hold on to epistemological integrity in a culture, we have seen them all weaponized. We've seen them all corrupted and turned against us. I cannot blame anybody at all for not believing any official explanation of absolutely anything.
Yeah. Sure.
That's why ask yourself this. Do you believe, Charlie left behind an empire, hundreds of employees, and
1,000 employees.
People whose whole lives were going to be dedicated to serving his cause, and they're all in on it, and no one's turned evidence. No one's come in and said, "Hey, I was in the texts. We actually did Mossad really did it. Okay, no one, probably because it never happened. You care more about Tyler Robinson than his entire family does. Heck, the entire furry community does, because none of them have come forward either, guys, to say, hey, you know what, man, whatever tranny furries do on a random Tuesday, we were doing it, okay? And we were doing it in Palm Beach. And I've got the...
Whoa. I don't want to know. There's not enough hand sanitizer to deal with that.
There's no exculpatory evidence provided by anybody who has the most motivation to provide it. And so this is where, as Christians, there's, to borrow a phrase here about the whole narrow road thing. Do not be suckers for the spirit of the age. Do not fall for, when you see something suddenly appear online, here's your Vax card, here's your Ukraine flag, all right? And no, they're not bringing Blockbuster back. That's the Ukraine flag, okay? Here's, my pronouns, right? Wear a mask, stay home, save lives. That's all psyops. That's all jamming techniques. You know what else is a jamming technique? How in the middle of absolutely nowhere, starting in like February, everything was the Jews' faults everywhere you went online. That's also another form of a psyop and jamming technique. Whenever something appears out of absolutely nowhere, and you can't trace what its actual origin is, I promise you it's a malevolent presence every time. And so don't be a simp for the spirit of the age. Don't fall for canards, right? At the same token, though, remember this about Christianity. Christianity is not the endless asking of questions. It is the ceaseless seeking of answers. Ask, seek, knock. We're in the Advent Christmas season. Jesus said, says to Pilate, for this reason I came into the world, to testify to the truth. The fact that God wants truth to be known is not any more prevalent than this time of year, where the King of the universe left paradise to put himself into the most vulnerable human form of his own creation he could, an unborn child, into an unwed mom. All right? He had his diaper changed. He had to learn how to talk. He had to learn how to feed, had to be weaned off his mother's breast. He had to learn how to build sturdy tables like this. He had to learn a trade, a craft. All right? He thirsted. He went to the bathroom. There were nights he couldn't sleep. All these things he did to be known by you. That's why he did it, for the truth to be known. This idea that the truth is mysterious, it's unknowable. Only a few really smart, special people have it. That's exactly what it is. And it's up to us to disperse it to you. This is the first heresy. This is Gnosticism. That's exactly what it is. And so remember, don't fall for the official explanations on virtually anything without Zapruder film level evidence, number one. But number two, don't be a sucker on the other end for grievance and grifter peddlers. And ask yourself, are they leading me to answers? Are they leading me to answers? And a lot of times you can tell if something is of God by your response to it. Does it make you more godly? If your response to something doesn't make you more godly, likely it's not a godly.
Well, and does it build faith or fear?
Correct.
Because the truth builds faith and lies build fear. And we were talking about it just briefly beforehand. Everything went upside down in the universe when Satan just started asking a question. And so those who say, I'm not attacking anyone. I'm not undoing the truth. I'm not saying anything. I'm just asking questions. I'm just trying to hold people accountable. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this. I'm just asking questions.
To a woman.
Yeah, it's like the thing
that preach.
The thing unraveled with a question. And sometimes the question is demonic, and what we saw on the left is deconstructionism is asking questions to deconstruct, and now what we are seeing is deconstructionism on the right.
Yes.
So
that's the French Revolution. Right-wing populist deconstructionism that is godless. And after it's gotten when it's accrued enough hegemony, it'll end up behaving just like the godlessness on the left, because the root is godless.
And so you can be a deconstructionist. Deconstructionism is a weapon of the enemy. It is a counterfeit to the truth. What God creates, Satan counterfeits. And so deconstructionism can be weaponized by the political, cultural left or the right. And so when it is used by the trans community, It deconstructs gender and God. When it is deconstructed, when deconstructionism is wielded as a weapon by the right, now you are deconstructing reality, you're deconstructing logic, you're deconstructing reason, you're deconstructing facts, you're deconstructing truth, and you're deconstructing relationships. Either way, it's an evil, and it's a tactic of spiritual warfare. And so, the asking of the wrong question is how the entire universe came unraveled. And it didn't lead to facts or evidence. It didn't lead to faith or joy. It didn't lead to unity or purpose. It didn't lead to blessing. And so you've got to ask yourself, when these questions get asked, does it lead to godliness? Does it lead to blessing? Does it lead to faith? Does it lead to joy? And if not, it's demonic. It's spiritual warfare.
Yep.
Yeah, you've said it's much easier to critique than to build, and we need a builder to lead right now. You've coached politicians, you've helped lead campaigns, all kinds of things. If it's Vance or if it's someone else, what do they need to do in this next season?
I think J.D. Vance, setting even 28 aside, I think Vance is the only human being alive that I am currently aware of that I think has any chance of filling one of Charlie's key voids, which is being a prophetic voice to guide the next generation of young men.
Yeah,
I agree.
The challenge he has to do that, though, does now spill over into his political aspirations, because the group of people he's the most equipped to speak for and lead also is the one that can at times be the most susceptible to some of the things we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Right. And so, we have a teeter-totter coalition right now, and attempting to whitewash Nick Fuentes and turning him into the right-wing Louis Farrakhan has the potential to blow up our coalition because of both, mainly, frankly, Christian traditions that hold Israel in a high regard. And frankly, many of those Christian churches know way more about Judaism than the average Jew in the world does. Okay. And they're a key component. They're one of the largest voting blocks we have in our whole coalition. So mainstreaming Nick Fuentes and then saying that if you believe in Christian Zionism without even defining what that is, you're a heretic, that has the potential to completely blow up our coalition. On the other hand, attempting to cancel the man who said that because of the other body of work he does on a lot of other issues that's great and people respect, has the potential to blow up our coalition in the other direction. So what's going to be the fulcrum here that's going to balance these kinds of things out? And I think J.D. Vance is the best chance we have to keep that coalition together. The key, I think, for him is going to be, how do I put this? Charlie was a key spiritual advisor in these kinds of situations.
Yeah, and they were friends.
And remember, J.D. is barely 40, and he just became a Christian in the last few years, right? Now, given the depth of knowledge that he has displayed, it's clear he takes it very seriously, but he's also relatively new to this himself. I think it'll be vital for him to have a voice or voices that can help him to understand how to navigate, particularly because it's one of his other good friends that is one of the people that is making a lot of our people nervous right now when we talk about Tucker, right? And so how to navigate that will require a lot of prayerful wisdom on his part. I think his biggest threat to the nomination is this internal division right here, more than any other candidate is, right? And it's good training for what being a president is like when you're presiding over a country with these various views. So how does he, JD, his chief of staff, is a great guy, Jacob Reeses. He's a Jew, okay, at the same time, So how does JD learn how to navigate these treacherous waters, how to hold that coalition together? If he learns that, if he gets good wisdom to try and fill some of the void that Charlie had behind the scenes in doing that for him, then I think he'll run en route to the nomination. If he doesn't, then I think it'll leave the door open for someone to come forward and try to exploit that. Yeah.
And if the midterms don't go well, we've got 2 years of
endless impeachments.
And
not just Trump. They're going to try to impeach every junior. Hey, anyone the people you like the most in the administration, those are all the ones. They're not going to try to impeach Pam Bondi. They're going to try to impeach Pete Hegseth. That's what they're going to try to impeach. Yeah.
But if the midterms don't go well, it is 2 years of lawfare and impeachment and stonewalling and just Yeah, it is going to be rough.
Yep. That is very true.
So we probably got 9 months.
Yep. We need signs, clear signs in the average kitchen table in neighborhoods like this that by, I would say, Labor Day of next year, that it's very clear that the meta stuff in the economy actually has a lot of good markers. But is when the average American family or upper or middle to upper middle class family gets together, do they feel that at their kitchen table?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is still no.
Not yet.
And that needs to be felt in a microeconomy level. The other thing we need, frankly, is the two wings to our coalition we added in this last election was the Maha wing and then the Joe Rogan, Theo Von, bro dude wing. Mm-hmm. And these are in the Maha wing was never Republican, never conservative. They kind of began working with people like me during COVID because they saw we had a shared concern and skepticism, and they're they're getting increasingly red-pilled. That's good. The Maha stuff got off to a very slow start early in the year. They were very upset. It has gotten way better in the second half of the year, so they're more unified than they were a few months ago.
A lot of young women love the Maha thing.
Yeah.
The bro dude people are not happy though.
Mm-hmm.
When they see stuff like this morning, reports from Kash Patel about how even more scandalous the raid of Mar-a-Lago was than we even thought. What they want is Kash Patel to say, and therefore that's why I'm in the district, in the Florida district.
Pull the trigger.
Pull
the trigger. Pull the trigger.
Okay. And the fact that is not happening, these are people that really just think the entire system is a simulation and a show, and they want it, and they may not be wrong to some degree, but they want the swamp drained and the system confronted, and right now they're totally off the reservation, completely off. We got to get them back on, all right? And we need, and because a lot of the native MAGA people also care greatly about accountability and transparency too.
Cash is busy.
Yeah, he's got date nights on his private plane.
I know he's busy,
as one does. Anywho, we've got to see return of fire. The number one thing that I think we have to see, guys, to avoid the current cold civil war becoming hot, which I do not want to see. All right, I'm 52. All right, I had to lose another 40 pounds to get a dad bod, okay? I will not be fighting the Civil War, all right? My brilliant 18-year-old son will be. He will be. You and I aren't fighting this, all right? So I'm not up for the tough guys. Civil War, I love the guy who was like, Civil War, man, and then you made sure your little princess Dolly wore a mask before she went into Costco. Don't give me that, right? It's going to be this guy, these guys, they're fighting it. We're not fighting it, right? So how do we avoid that? What we need more than anything is mutual assured destruction. What did Reagan do in the Cold War? Well, after 30 years of weakness in front of the Soviets, the crazies in the Kremlin believed they could actually win a nuclear war now. So maybe we should push the button first. And what Reagan showed them is, no, we're going to build up our military to the excess of yours. To show you the movie War Games was right. The only way to win the game is not to play. Do not push that button. You'll just be king of a radioactive anthill. No one will win, all right? And that mutual assured destruction stopped them from pushing the button. What's happening right now is Democrats know they can do whatever they want to us whenever they want, and there will be no blowback unless the voters provide it. There will be no blowback legally whatsoever. And whenever you have a bully, I don't care if it's a schoolyard, I don't care if it's the rotunda of the Capitol Dome. When you have a bully who you just let punch you into perpetuity, and they never once fear that they one day may face the sight and smell of their own blood, they're just going to keep punching you. And at some point, there has to be mutually assured destruction, because that bro dude vote is saying to themselves, bro, if the guy who got shot in the face so he didn't win the election, even he won't stand up and push these people, then no one will. So you know what? There's no point to ever getting involved again. All right, back to ancient aliens. Joe Rogan, go back to ancient aliens.
We're just
telling us that weed is a food group.
Yeah.
We tried adulting. We tried stepping into the world. We even put Wesley Huff on to show us Christianity is real. We gave it a shot, and then in the end, we gave you guys your shot, and all you did was punk out. So back to ancient aliens and weed, I guess it is. And without those voters, we're kind of screwed. So we need to show them that they didn't vote for us in vain. We didn't lie to them, all right? That we do intend on following through on transparency and accountability. Not to mention that's good for the Republic.
It's a good place to leave it.
I think it's a good place to leave it. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the Mark Driscoll Show, and Merry Christmas.